The aspects of any education system can be determined almost exclusively by the questions: how do we teach? What we inculcate in our teaching systems to make it better? And finally, what we teach the younger generations. For our world, these questions are answered by what pedagogies we adopt, how we inculcate technology, and what shall be our curriculum, respectively. To speak more of technology, pedagogy, and curriculum for a new world, we have a panel discussion.
For the moderator of this panel discussion, we would like to invite Mr. Ratnesh Kumar Jha. Mr. Ratnesh is the CEO for the Burlington Group Southeast Asia and India, and he's an alumnus of JNU and has an MBA from Kellogg Business School and an MA from the University of Cambridge.
For our first panelist, we would like to invite to the stage Mr. Prajodh Rajan. Mr. Rajan is co-founder and group CEO of Lighthouse Learning. Under his leadership, the company grew from 2 preschools in 2001 to 1,200 preschools across 360 towns and cities in India, Nepal, and Bangladesh. He has also been a proud recipient of the Education Leadership Award 2016.
For our second panelist, we would like to invite to the stage Ms. Joyeeta Dasgupta. Ms. Joyeeta works as an assistant director for the education schools at the Indirapuram group of institutions. She graduated from IGNOU in 2010.
For our third panelist, we would like to invite to the stage Mr. Sachin Vats. An engineering alumnus of Savitribai Phule University, Pune, Mr. Vats is the founder director of CBSE affiliated Gurukul, the school, Ghaziabad. He also has master's degree in human resource and education management. Under his aegis, Gurukul the school has evolved from a small offshoot of primary schools with 20 students to a leading national brand brimming with over 3,000 students in 2 well-established branches.
For our fourth panelist, we would like to invite to the stage Mr. Srinivasan Sriram. Mr. Sriram is the principal of the Mann School, Delhi. He is a recipient of the prestigious National Award for Teachers for Innovation in ICT from the President of India, and has also been the recipient of the National Computer Literacy Excellence Award.
And for our final panelist, we would like to invite Mr. Serai. Mr. Serai is working as one of the co-chairs of the Satluj group and is the director at Satluj Public School, Panchkula, Haryana. He believes in building future visionaries and imparting students with quality education and lifelong learning skills.
We invite sirs to the stage. Sirs and ma'am.
Over to you.
Over to you, ladies and gentlemen.
Good morning. The job of moderator is sometimes very difficult. I'll tell you how is it difficult. After yesterday's session, it is, sir. And, yes, and I'll prove it. So after yesterday's whole day discussion and a morning discussion, there are a few words resonating in each of our minds. And our panel here, esteemed panel, comes back and say, no, those words will not come in our discussion today. So you know I'm talking about. So we will not use two words which has been used in the last many sessions, every next sentence. So we're not going to use that. So that's one. The other, if you wake up in the night and say, change everything what we have prepared for, let's look at the new set of discussion which we do. So the moderator gets into action, and at about 1:30 in the night sends the question, which are new questions, and the other panelist starts really working on that. So what I'm saying is, today, the topic of the discussion is one which leads us to in that direction of having those words being used. But more than that, I think today's the discussion we are trying to bring that whole dream and nightmare. So we've had a lot of nightmarish discussion, and there is a dream which we want to talk about. And the dream actually comes down to this room of educators, and that the classroom and the school and the humane. And I think we're looking at very simply addressing some of that in our discussion with a very, very powerful panel here. This is one of the most diverse panel I have ever moderated. We have panel with our thousands of hours of teaching in the classroom, in the best of the school in this country. We have panel with a very successful businessman who's taken education to the new heights, not only in India, outside the world. We have panel very eloquent speaker who really not an educator but also speaks very well. And also we have panel with somebody who has a spectrum of corporate education and everything put together in terms of bringing the experience here. So let me start this question, and I want to make this panel more interactive, so please keep thinking and thinking about questions for any of us to be asked. And if you see, this is the first panel, we have one more member, right? So let me start. So Prajodh, I'm going to start with you. And Prajodh and I go a long way. It's a disclaimer. He's a good friend. When he started his preschool, and it was the beginning of his start, that's when we came to know each other. Today, roll forward, 1,400 preschools, 50 schools which he's running, and that 50 schools he continues to dream to become 100 by the end of this year or something like that. The latest partnership with the Heritage School, Manit, you heard yesterday. So here is somebody who's scaling, who understands school, who understands education, who's scaling, who deals with real human side of the, dealing with this business in a way that business is not only business, it is also the education is at the core of it. So, Prajodh, in the last couple of, yesterday and today, there's been a lot of discussion about the classroom, right? And there are changing dynamics of the classroom. The first question which I have for you is, what is happening with this whole pillars which are there as an educator, as a teacher, as a parents, and as somebody who's actually head of school? Is the discussion between the parent and the educator or teacher changing? Are you seeing some change there?
Thanks, Ratnesh. Morning all. Ratnesh spoke about me as being a business person. I'd like to call myself an education entrepreneur. That's who I am. So clarification is just that I'm not an education expert. I'm just an education entrepreneur. So while I had a ringside view of, let's say, parents' expectations out of schools and preschools, and really what's happening within the country as such, if you ask me, Ratnesh, my immediate thought really goes down to first around saying, at schools really, do we really think about the culture that we're wanting to build in the school? Do we really spend time thinking about, I know that there's been a lot of discussion around the AI and technology per se, but if you just kind of step back a little around what kind of culture do we want to build in schools, do we stop and think about it? And it could be simple things, right? Culture is just about how we behave more than anything else. But the fact that, is the school bell important? Do I still need to use uniforms in my school? Are 40 periods important? Is this the kind of schedule that I want? If you ask me, there are a lot of small things that go on to make those big things. School culture, I do think that in India we still have a teaching culture. I don't think we have a learning culture yet, and which is the reason why we need to work on making a learning culture amongst our schools there. So that really is my first immediate thought when you think about the role of the educator, the school, and the parent. Another point that I'd like to just make is that during the pandemic, I actually thought something amazing happened. And I don't know if all of you realize that, but I actually think that the stock of educators post-pandemic or even during the pandemic actually increased. And that's the reason why I say that is because up till then, parents really didn't know what was happening within the classroom. And once during the pandemic, it got the exposure in their living rooms, it first started with a lot of, let's say, crib and cry about the language skills of the teacher, the way that she dressed, the kind of environment that she created, all of that. But after few, let's say, sessions and few days, I actually thought that a lot changed. The stock of the educator actually improved. And I actually think that there has been a reset in terms of the relationship between the parent and the teacher educator post-pandemic. I actually realized that because previous to that, when you think about the kind of schools that we operate, you would think about schools as being a service organization, right? You would ask for it as a service, but not anymore post-pandemic. That at least was very interesting for me.
Thanks, Prajodh. I think the word which you used is culture, and I think, Sriram, I'm coming to you after this. Yesterday I was sitting next to you, and I see you getting very emotional a couple of times. Once in the morning when Laksharaji mentioned about that instance of transaction, and then there was a second time when Kuplan's founder here, he mentioned about you, Sriram. And I think both the time you were moist and you were really thinking about what's that. So the learning culture, which we are talking about, is a transaction which is really happening within the school ecosystem. So it can actually start as a unit, as a classroom, but go all the way up to the school, including the school leader. And there are discussion around the inertia of learning, which you see within the teachers. And I think yesterday we were sitting with General Kulkarni, and he's raising his hand and said that, when you try actually doing that, people really tend to go back to the original state faster. So your intervention is not sustained. So your reflection, Sriram, on this.
Yeah, good morning, everyone, and thank you, Ravi, for having me over on this show. When I think about the past, and we as educators try and give the best to our students, and that is how they connect with us. And when I was at Mayo for a good 30 years, we tried to do that. And I have the good fortune of having two mentors, Mr. Pramod Sharma and General Kulkarni here, under whom I worked. Way back in 2000, 2001, Mr. Pramod Sharma realized the importance of technology in classroom. And we had this campus-wide LAN built across the entire campus. Now, Mayo is a very big campus of 186 acres. General Kulkarni, towards the later part of my career there, emphasized on three important, there are many, but I'm going to talk about three. One is the campus as a classroom, which Mr. Himmat also spoke about yesterday. Having a huge campus, we can leverage that as a learning space, which is so beautiful in legacy schools like Mayo College, Sanar and Doon and so on. That is one. Second, he talked about interdisciplinary learning, which is again a very important thing in classroom. I'm going to give you some examples, so give me a minute, please. And when we did that, when we expected teachers to go to the spaces outside and teach the students and connect with that connect was missing. So teachers would normally take the students there, teach the same thing what is being taught in the classroom. That was not the purpose. The purpose was to engage the space around you and ensure if you can get the best out of the students to think about how the connect can happen. Same thing in the interdisciplinary way of learning. When a student sees a football match, the ball curves and then a player scores a goal. There are lots of dynamics involved in it. It's just not about there are physics, there's geography, history, and so many things involved. So when he sees that as one action and enjoys it, why teach them differently is subjects in geography, in history, in mathematics, in physics separately, is the whole concept about. But what we realized was after doing all the hard work that we did, the teacher would end up coming back to the classroom and teach the same old thing. Syllabus complete karna hai October mein. That's the bottom line. We need to go about those concepts, conceptual understanding. We did one exercise where an internal survey of the teachers knowing the students, not something which can be shared with the parents and other stakeholders, but something the teacher can analyze for each and every student and do the remedials. So many interventions, but then we saw, so we talk about the culture, it's like that inertia was missing. The willingness to change was not there among the teachers.
So I think educators, I'm sure you must be reflecting, and why I said that it's a little more in terms of your school inside the classroom, because some of it, what we're talking is close home, right? So how do you build a culture of learning? How do you build for the teacher and also for the leader, some time to say, do I go and reflect and learn more and then come back and have those practices the way I have learned and the new things which we have really, not the way you have that, throughout the career of yours. Joe, I'm coming to you now, asking, you have a 360 view of working with the NGOs, also with the large corporate, now part of the school chain. You're doing lots of work on the pedagogy curriculum, right? And you think the future is changing, right? So future of school is changing, future of hiring teachers. What kind of teacher, whether the teachers to be hired had the same set of attributes in the past. What are you actually trying to intend for that, what you're seeing as a future of school or a hiring of those teachers?
Okay, so I'm going to piggyback on Anand's talk about what he said in the higher education space, how employment is changing and practically every profession that we thought was safe, quote unquote, is going to disappear. So my question is that we've been hearing this for ages now, that companies have been telling us that schools and colleges are simply not making the kind of human resource that they would like to employ. What has happened as a result? Schools have continued to exist exactly as they have. Have we really changed as a result of industry feedback? I don't think so. So what is stopping us from going on exactly in the same way for the next 100 years? Industry continues to complain, we continue to do what we have been doing. So the difference here, right now, today, is that there are alternatives. Previously, that was not so. The alternative is technology. The alternative is what we are seeing in classes 11 and 12 as enrollment drops across the country. What exactly are we seeing here? People are finding best use of their time and resources here. Can I, as a parent today, if I want to choose an education institute for my child, would I want to put my child in a school whose teachers, the quality of whose teachers, I cannot guarantee? I don't know whether the quality will remain same year after year just because the school is a big name, because we all know what is happening with our recruitment and how teachers, because of personal or other reasons, keep moving. So as a parent, I neither know the quality at the end of it, nor do I have guarantee about the product that I will put in my child and out will come a professional whose life will be safe for the next 50 years. I don't know this. So here's my humble thought. I believe schools will not exist the way they are existing today, not anymore. We are looking at a future where, and I see many people here who are owners of schools, owners of chains of schools, perhaps you will not need teachers in the future anymore. So then this is quite a radical statement. Then who will you employ? You will employ designers. Designers who can curate experiences for your children. Designers who can create questions. And what will students experience? Students will take those designs of lessons, individual lesson plans, will engage with it. And this is not enough, because when we look at learning theories, we find that as human beings, we are very social beings. So our learning happens when we discuss, when we collaborate, when we ask questions, when we talk to each other. So how will we take care of that? Well, here's what crystal ball into the future, even though Anand says it's not possible, but I'll try and do that here, is that my crystal ball gazing tells me that smart school owners of the future are going to create spaces where children are going to come in at pre-specified timings, engage with the designs that designers will make, not teachers anymore, designers of experiences, and they come inside these beautiful spaces that school owners will create, and there we will have the grandparent network. What's that? We have two things here, right? And
Joe, I'll have to come back to you because that's
just 1 minute.
Yes.
Just 1 minute and I'll stop. Is that Shubhata Mitro's talked about the granny network, where British grandmothers, and we've heard about British pieces here, let's talk about grannies here, where they will say, oh wow, you're the grand. Oh my goodness, how wonderful that is. So we will have people to say that for encouragement and motivation. And grandfather's network, who will just ask rainbow questions. So you know how a rainbow is sky. So questions and the granny network saying, wow, that's the school of the future.
Curiosity is the all-in concept, right? So all in. So we haven't used those words so far, first time technology used here, but thank you so much for laying down so much of resonance here in the audience. And I think, which is why we said that these are all practical. So the definition can change, designer can be called, but there is a human being there still. We're not machine, right? So I think the next question, and I think again, coming out of that whole curious, school curious, classroom curious child, is about the learning outcome. Or are you looking for learning outcome, or are you looking for behavioral outcome, right? That's a question. You know, when you get to school, there are two discussions happening. Parents would come in and say, okay, till the time a child is KG to 8, give him project-based learning, experiential learning, all that words come in. The moment 8th goes to 9, syllabus khatam hua kya? You know, exam SAT mein pass karega kya? IIT JEE jayega kya? So that context changed. So the learning behavior where the child needed the most, because he's going to be, or he or she is going to graduate and get to the real world, is where we drop it. So Sachin, to you, how do you see this whole dynamics change in the current contemporary time? Is this learning outcome, or is this behavioral outcome we are talking about now?
Thank you, Ratnesh. Very good morning to one and all present here. So this is my first school news conference, and I shall be speaking with my little experience. It could be contextual. I do not know whether I'll be able to answer this question or not, but I'll try my bit.
And the reason why I'm asking this, because he runs amazing, one of the best culture class I've seen, and the class where the ideas are getting generated, which is why I see it's a very personal question to your school.
So now you have raised the expectations of the audience. I do not know. Well, so if we talk about learning and behavior, I feel as an institution, every school has a context. They have their target audience, they understand, and I have to be honest, और मैं पूरी ईमानदारी के साथ सच बोलने की कोशिश करूँगा, सच ही बोलूँगा. We know economics govern our schools. We understand wherever we operate, we need admissions. We understand we have certain aspects which are non-negotiable in terms of the commitment which we make to our parent community. But yes, there are certain things, for example, as you rightly said, project-based learning and this overall holistic development, and then probably marks and the syllabus completion in October, September. That's something which comes from the head of the school to the teachers. That's something which is there because in the competition, you have to project at end of the day what is the outcome of your school in terms of results. We can't deny this. But having said this, in today's context, when we know these children are a different DNA students, they are absolutely people with a very less attention span. We can't give them humongous content that comes in a 20-minute video, or probably somebody who gives them a huge text to cram, memorize, and reproduce. But bite-sized content is something that children are used to, whether it is reels or threads or these small content which are able to absorb their concentration, and this is all because of the social media. And what these students are now doing, for example, even for the edtech companies, look at the adaptation that Khan Academy has done, Khan We Go. They are giving bite-sized content because they understand that they are going to lose the market share. And on the contrary, Byju's, look at the graph. They are still 700 rupees per month subscription. Nobody is interested to read 20 minutes videos and watch them. So then this behavior eventually comes to something called children today must be taught in schools resilience. And resilience is not what they are supposed to do for certain things, but we need to tell them how they need to respond to anything that happens to them. If it is climate change, if it is anything that's happening around them, child is curious, they know, how am I supposed to behave in this situation? So if I'm resilient, I probably would be able to understand it better, and that's how I look at it.
Sachin, thanks. A quick 1 or 2 sentence on Khan Academy example which is given. These are all practical discussions
So
coming
Khan
out.
Migo, I'm so happy that you brought that out. If those of you who haven't, please go and see Salman Khan's TED Talk and NASCOM talk as well. Khan Migo is amazing. There are a lot of things that we as educators are concerned about, that if we allow the use of AI in the classroom, that children might forget to think. But Khan Migo is a AI setup where they work collaboratively with the children. They co-create. So if you're giving them a project, then Khan Migo would ask the child, okay, let's hear, what do you have to say? And when the child types in that, the Khan Migo responds to that with the pre-given rubrics that the teacher has already put in, and kind of acts as a personal tutor.
Right. So I think some of these examples are really evolving collaboration, learning, and the question which was the first question about the inertia is how do you really take this to your teacher? How do you really take it to your culture of learning to be resetting? We have somebody who's really had global experience. He had many hours of teaching in the United Kingdom, and he talks very passionately about it. He's changing or resetting in India with a group of schools where he's actually taking some of those practices, but he also talks about the context. So Gur, what does context mean for you?
First of all, good morning everyone, and thank you Ravi for inviting me. It's my first conference with ScooNews, and that's a very good question, Ratnesh. I'm actually going to repeat some of the things which the panel has already mentioned. When you look at context, working in the UK, I've actually led schools in the UK, and now I am in India since 2016. What do I see the difference between India and the rest of the world? AI, yes, we're very good at that. When it comes to new technologies, we're very good embracing that, and we do a phenomenal job. Where we are lacking, and that's becoming a big problem for us, and I see that in the UK, it's very evident, is communication. Our children may have the best knowledge in the world, but they are not able to articulate it confidently as to what they want to say. That is what we need to work on, is communication. Now, just today, I saw these lovely 2 boys. They spoke beautifully, I have to say. Please give those 2 boys a big, big round of applause. They were phenomenal. Now, that's called communication. That's what we need to focus on. When I arrived, I worked with Cambridge, and when I realized the answer doesn't lie with that, now I'm actually working with the Burlington group in developing communication in Satluj and across the Satluj group of schools, because we need to do that. With all the knowledge that we have, all the learning that is taking place, we need to ensure that our children are prepared for the next skill sets in the Western world. I know we've got CEOs of top companies in the US, Sundar Pichai being one of them. All the top companies in America, CEOs are from India. But that's not the case everywhere. Most of our children, when they go abroad, they get to the middle leadership level. But to go beyond the middle leadership level, you need to think outside the box. You need to convince people. And that starts right from the early age, from preschool actually. And it carries all the way. I think the biggest foundation needs to be laid in the early education sector. That's where learning through play, that's where communication takes place. I know by the time children get to class 10 plus 2, it's the same O-levels and A-levels in the UK. You have to get those marks. To get admission in a good college in India, you need 99.8%. One of my friends' child, he got 99.7%, couldn't get admission in St. Stephen's. He was so disappointed. 0.01%. That's why he couldn't get admission. I know marks are important, but at the same time, it is important for us to ensure that the overall child development, that's fundamental. And as educators, we play that big part. And I totally agree with Ma'am. You know, the classrooms of the future are going to change. Now, when I employ, of course, we may be critical of our B.Ed college. They're doing the best they can. And I was having a conversation with a couple of people last evening. At Satluj, we employ teachers and we actually train them for 6 months. We want them to think like the Satluj way. And I've also employed teachers, not just straight teachers, but I prefer to employ teachers who have different experiences from the corporate world or some other world, designers. And I have done that. And the reason is simple, because these guys, no, I'm not being critical to ones who've done B.Ed and come straight into the classroom, not at all. But with these kind of people, there is a different skill set, different way of thinking, different way of communication. If you look at the child of today, looking at a male teacher, they want a Shah Rukh Khan. They want John Abraham. Looking at a female teacher, they see Deepika Padukone or some other model in that. So it's a lot of pressure on us teachers. Huge amount of pressure. We have to look after ourselves, we have to groom ourselves, we have to ensure that we look the part. You should never judge a book by its cover, but what do our children do? They judge the book by its cover. That's where the short teaching span comes in. Teaching span is only for about 5 minutes.
Good,
After 5 minutes, you lose it.
I'll have to come here. I'm looking at the clock and I think I have...
I know. The Shehnai is going to be coming. I know that. But all I want to say is, I totally agree with all of us. The future of teaching is changing and is changing rapidly. And quite frankly, after COVID, has changed even more because now we are more scrutinized by our parents because our relationship with parents is a lot stronger than it was pre-COVID.
So I think the common theme remains, so what I'm going to use, we have about 8 minutes, 12 seconds left. So one or two sentences from each of you, one question, and then try see some questions from the audience, given the fact that from the audience, just one sentences each from you. So we have lots of changes happening within the country with all of what is happening with NEP, NCF, and then there are boards, there are 50 boards in this country, and there are 2 international boards. With all of that is happening in this country, what's the role of the boards? How does that change?
Can I answer that? We may have all the boards in the world. I strongly believe at school, directors, owners, principals, use everything with common sense. Don't keep the strong traditions which you have, which have been very successful. Don't let go of them. Keep them and continue with them. Boards will change after every 3 years. The new policy comes out, but you have to keep to the basics. Common sense, do what is right.
Prajodh.
At least for the medium term, Ratnesh, the role of the boards will be very important. And we can see that happening across India as well. I think whether it's a central board or now preference towards international curriculum, and we can see that clearly come out in India. It will be the case. I can see that there will be CBSE schools in India, but there will also be the Cambridge and the IB schools, and there will be a lot more of them in the country. That's also because parents' preference is also changing, because you can see that when you talk about, let's say, better curriculum, they want to gravitate towards an international curriculum. So they don't still think that state boards or national boards can offer what is called as better curriculum in the form of international. International feels right. So the role of the boards will remain, and I do think that from an affiliating standpoint, there will be teaching for the test. That will be the case, at least for the medium term. But for the longest term, will this change? I would guess so as well.
And so I'll just tweak the question and change. With the context, so for Sachin, with the context of what we're saying, curiosity and, learning to learn, ability to ask questions, all that context being said, what's changing with the board settings and the curriculums being set?
So I would like to add 2 points here. Just correcting to what Prajodh said. Boards should definitely look into the way assessments are planned. The pedagogy is not going to change till the assessments are made more liberal, more contextual, and schools are given that freedom that whatever is coming in terms of this project-based learning and everything. Like yesterday we were talking to General Kulkarni and he said, we were sitting by the pool side and he said, why can't a teacher use this pool as a learning resource? And there could be immense learning that can be done. Similarly, in a classroom context, if the teacher has to given this responsibility that real learning outcomes have to be achieved, then the assessment is something which the boards have to look into. Moreover, the companies and the job creators and seekers, anybody for that matter, once you become an alumni of a school, the college, the first level, or probably then the job market, both of them are looking for something called skill, and today even a humanities student can go and seek an investment bank job. That's happening. There are colleges in Delhi University where, irrespective of the stream you are from, whether you are from an SRCC or an LSR or any of the college Stephens for that matter, they recruit students based on their skill set. And if that is something which companies are looking, so the board and the governing bodies need to understand that this NEP and all those things are definitely coming up, but it has to be implemented much more.
Sure. So I think quick one, Sriram, and then we will go to the audience with your permission because we'll have very...
Yeah, I want to add up with what Sachin said. I can't agree more with him. But then the freedom for the schools to kind of leverage whatever the board prescribes is very, very important, which can, create an atmosphere of inquiry-based learning. The fire in the belly of the students is very, very important. I mean, that's something which is missing. I mean, the joy of learning that we all talked about, it's not that fire in the belly which gets all right with the Hajmola. This is the fire in the belly which make him think, put a man on, Mars. That's the kind of situation that the board should allow the schools, to kind of improvise and think over.
Sure. So I think I'm taking a liberty from you. And 3 minutes, 60 seconds, questions. Amrita, first to you and then to Colonel Sekhar.
So my question is to you, since you mentioned that you're an edupreneur and you also mentioned about culture and we spoke about traditions, my fear in education is when you have okay, you got my word, corporates coming into education, every school has a culture. All of us are different. When you corporatize it, I fear there's going to be monopolization and a lack of diversity. There's going to be a natural tendency because you want to run schools successfully. All of them are painted by the same brush. I fear that. Diversity is what makes us exist. Your point.
I think there's a follow-up question as well for the same point, I guess.
Yes, I think that both of them have the same questions, perhaps.
Oh, you don't have the same question. I have a different one.
So, Amrita,
He's giving us a few more minutes.
Yeah. So, when we speak about culture, really, I would think that every school has its culture. Now, whether I'm saying the corporatization per se necessarily need not mean just standardization, right, per se there. Standardization and corporatization are two different words per se there. Standardization in certain processes and systems actually helps the cause, which is a good reason why you can make replicable schools, but those replicable schools are systems and processes driven schools. But the learning outcome that we so search can be uniform per se, because ultimately if it's about the joy of learning and ensuring that every learner feels empowered in the classroom, what we put as the input can be standard. So that need not change, and which is the reason why I do think that every school will have its own culture. Corporatization and standardization are two different words per se. Systems and processes can be standardized, which actually help replication. And if the goal is to be able to serve more students in the country, like for example, our goal is to get to about 1 million kids whose life we can impact. We reach about 175,000 students who come to our institutions every single day. But if I have to get to about 1 million, then there is a process of the input, which is about the standardization of processes which can help the outcome, which is finally the learning outcome that we all seek.
Colonel Sekhar.
Yeah, I'll just take a point with you, sir. You seem to be emphasizing on control. Corporatization, standardization of control. My understanding is students should run the school, teachers should mentor the students, the principal should mentor the teachers, and the board should mentor the principal. The control factor is what Amrita is highlighting. That's my first point. My question to all of you is culture, etc. Are we becoming too politically correct? How many of our schools have openly discussed Manipur, Haryana, the Uniform Civil Code? Yeah. I hope Ravi has not told them to do it. I hope Ravi has not told them to do it. So are we in this business of...
No. We'll take this question,
Yeah.
Colonel Sekhar,
Yeah.
and then we will...
Thought, leadership, etc. Are we hiding ourselves from the realities around us in the name of corporatization and looking at the buts, not learning? Thank you.
Can I slightly answer that question?
Yes.
We do have, and it's a very, very sad fact, we do have a culture of micromanaging people. Whatever we do, as a leader, and what I feel, you need to be comfortable in your skin. You have to take views. Of course, I totally agree. Children play a big part, and they should play a big part in running of the school, in terms of the curriculum. That's what we've done. And the only reason I did that, because a lot of my training is from abroad as well. That's the way I work. Because outside, micromanaging is very less. It's all about delegation, it's all about trust, working together as a team. And I think we need to do more of that in India.
So good. I just want to be conscious of the time, but I want to address both. One sentence. I work for corporate, and we are not bad, right? We're here to support and work with you to create a culture. No, the point which I'm saying, the school is a very humble, high on humility, children, educators. It is a place where we're learning. So that culture is not a question of that entity of corporate or name given. It is the leadership who sets, it is the people who really around sets that culture. And I think that's what really getting reinforced in terms of our discussion. So I think collectively, yes, please add.
One last line. I feel the answer to that question is leadership. We have B.Ed colleges for teachers. It's time that we had a very strong training system for principals. I wish for a time where managements encourage questioning and school leaders are fearless. Everything else can be taken care of by that.
So invest in teacher, invest in actually having that culture and do that sustainably and make that as a lifelong investment. Thank you so much.
And don't micromanage if you're a leader.
Ma'am, if we can have an assessment or a examination before recruiting a principal, it's not about years of experience. It's about how updated you are.